and 10 buildings, as well as 2 new abilities. We feel that the previous patch has mostly achieved its goal, fixing community pain points. Fixing community pain points around Widow Mines and Cyclones, and slightly helping Protoss players in early and mid-game against Terrans. However, the current patch has a couple of more ambiguous goals outlined below. The first goal is to nerf defensive and camping. Oh my god! Oh, that sounds so fucking great. It's something I've been talking about. Oh my god, dude, the validation. The validation. I've been talking about this for so long, and it's like, whenever I talk about it, I just feel like it goes in one ear and out the other with everyone I talk to about this. But it's very much so true. With the release of Legacy of the Void, you know, I always talk about this concept where players are getting to a higher rank than they deserve. And the reason this is happening is very, very specifically for this passage that I just read. The first goal is to nerf defensive and camping playstyles for all races. This is... like, dude, seriously, the validation... I don't understand why it took them 7 fucking years to address this, but it needed to be addressed a long time ago. So that is exciting. Oh my god, dude. 2v2 might actually get its fucking identity back. So anyway, the first goal is to nerf defensive and camping playstyles for all races, both related to early and late game on the higher levels of play. We will target specific units, buildings, and abilities suited for camping to promote more active gameplay across all stages of the game. Dude, oh my god. Oh my god. I cannot fucking believe that I just read that. The second goal is to continue reshaping Protoss tools for high-level gameplay. We believe there is still a major gap between how Protoss race plays and feels on the highest level of play and the levels below. Current set of changes aims to make Protoss race slightly more efficient with the strongest and smartest executions, while helping Terran and Zerg players against Protoss on the lower levels. I mean, I think that's, to be honest, that is perfectly sound reason, and it's rational. And the only reason I say this is because if you look at the pro scene, Protoss players don't win anything. This doesn't happen. You know, you can't convince me that a player like Parting or a player like Creator or some of these other players out there are not on the same level as a lot of these TNZ players who are winning tournament after tournament after tournament after tournament. The Protoss representation has been so lackluster in the pro scene for such a long period of time. I think that that's perfectly reasonable and sound logic. So far, so good. The third goal would be to provide strong playstyle alternatives for various matchups. Thank you! Like, the reason I never play Bio is because it isn't viable. That's why I do that. Because it isn't viable. Like, dude, these key points are amazing. And the other thing also is that when you sit down to play a 1v1, when you get to a high level, that it is exactly what you're doing. You're rotating through 3 viable strategies, and that gets crazy stale and crazy boring. So anyway, the third goal would be to provide strong playstyle alternatives for various matchups. Zergs might be now better equipped to use ground-based armies against mass air strategies. And some of the Terran mech units are now more efficient in harassment or certain straight-up fight scenarios. Lastly, we would like to continue adding overall gameplay and quality of life improvements viable across all levels of play. I seriously hope these fuckers are talking about the UI settings too. You know, like, make it so that people, like, when they message you, they can't see your search, or if you blocked somebody, you go completely invisible to them. I hope they're not. I hope this isn't just for the gameplay. I really genuinely hope that they also understand that the fucking social settings in this game are abysmal. You know, we're talking about before Christ kind of technology. I really hope that they're addressing that stuff too. Okay, so Protoss changes. Nexus, shield battery overcharge ability removed. Oh my god. Thank you. Thank you. Nobody likes that mechanic. Nobody thinks that that mechanic is interesting. The only thing that that mechanic has ever done to any player is either make them feel way better than what they are, or make you feel way worse than what you are. That's all it has ever done. New ability added, Energy Overcharge. Energy Overcharge costs 50 energy and recharges 100 energy of the target allied unit or structure with a maximum range of 8. Now, on paper, that sounds fine, but you gotta see how stuff like that works when you play the game. Like, you can theory craft and read this shit all day long, but until it's play tested, there's really no way to know. The developer comment says, while being one of the most important tools in Protoss defenses, Shield Battery Overcharge is also one of the most frustrating abilities. It's like literally what I just said. The only thing that this ability has ever done is make people mad. And create this sort of like Dunning-Kruger effect for Protoss players. It's literally all it has ever done. And it's overall more efficient at the lower level of play, unlike other defensive techniques like transfuse or mass repair. Instead of this ability, there is a new tool which can help empower Protoss support units like Sentry, Oracle, and High Templar during defense. Protoss support units, blah, 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 blah. The ability can still be used to restore shield battery energy, but it is expected to perform much weaker in this scenario than shield battery overcharge. Huh. I didn't realize that was basically it's a battery, but it's got an ability that can restore energy. I'm not really sure what that's all about. That's weird. I'm not really sure, like, what, I don't know how that would be used. Well, anyway, I guess we'll figure it out at some point. Shield battery. Shield and HP increase from 150 to 200. Okay, I mean that's fine. If they're gonna nerf the shit out of the overcharge, I don't see anything wrong with that. Developer comment says, considering this ability swap might be a direct Protoss nerf in a lot of early and mid-game scenarios, shield batteries will now have increased survivability to slightly compensate for that, and the PTR games will be closely monitored. Okay. Colossus, shield and HP change from 150, 200 to 100, 250. I don't really think that's the core of the problem with the Colossus. The Colossus is just... I mean, it is squishy. It very much so is squishy, which makes it fucking useless against, you know, like bio and stuff like that. It says, with no battery overcharge, having more shields is no longer crucial for key Protoss units like Colossus. Instead, having more HP will be helpful against EMP. I don't think they understand what they're talking about there. I'm confused here. It says with no battery overcharge, having more shields is no longer crucial. But it says the shield and HP changed from... Oh, okay. I don't understand why they wrote it like this, but it's usually when you talk about the you put the HP value in front of the shield value. They've got this backwards. Okay, so it's gonna have 250 HP and okay, that's pretty significant. Okay. I'm not really sure if that's gonna change much, though. I mean, the armor upgrade will definitely have a lot more value, because once they shred the shields, then the armor would be applied to the HP. I don't know, it might be significant. I'm not really convinced that that's going to change much for the Colossus, because, again, the Colossus is squishy, but the problem is not really with the squishiness, it's more about the damage output, and it being useful or useless. But, I mean, I don't know, 250 HP with +1 armor, yeah, that does sound pretty good. I don't know, just have to play test it. Tempest, supply cost decreased from 5 to 4, damage point decreased. So we got a 28% damage reduction. Attack range versus air decreased from 14 to 13. I'm not really sure why. Like, why exactly? What's the logic here? Tempests are a very important late-game tool for Protoss players, but their high supply cost combined with an average damage output makes the ultimate Protoss army weaker in the head-to-head fight. This set of changes will help high-level Protoss players to fit a bit more power in their maxed armies and having more opportunities for micro while slightly decreasing units' maximum attack range to not strengthen mass Tempest armies. I don't know. I feel like they missed the mark on this. Again, I don't really think the numbers that they've input here are significant enough to have that much of an impact. 5 to 4, 28% damage reduction. Damage point decreased. Attack range versus air decreased. I don't know. That sounds like a goofy change to me, but we'll see. The Immortal. Mineral cost decreased from 275 to 250. Weapon cooldown increased from 1.04 to 1.14. So I got a DPS increase. Weapon cooldown increased. Okay. So it'll attack at a faster rate, and it's going to have less cost. Yeah, that's just a straight up buff. Like a bit, that's just a buff. And the logic behind this, according to the developers, is the damage output from Immortals seem to be too... Oh, wait. Mineral cost decrease. Weapon cooldown. Oh, I thought that said... I got that backwards. It's weapon cooldown increase, so they're going to attack at a slower rate. That's a 10% increase. I kind of like that. And I feel like... It follows the narrative that they're trying to fix the whole camping turtle playstyle, because that is one of the things I ran into at Grandmaster 1v1 in PvP. It was just a shit show because it was just always about who had more Immortals inside their main and who got bored first and attacked. So I like that change, but I feel like the ramifications of that might be a little too high in other matchups that basically you're required to have Immortals, you know, like in PvZ, for example. Anyway, the logic from the developers with this change is the damage output from Immortals seems to be too high in Protoss versus Zerg matchups across all levels of play. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about with that, but okay. While Immortal mineral cost is slightly decreased to compensate for the DPS nerf, this set of changes should help Zerg survive against various Protoss mid-game. What are they talking about? Well, they must not be talking about high level of play, because that makes no sense at high level of play. So I'm assuming that this change is targeted to the lower player, casual player base. Which, I gotta be honest, it's really what you want to do, because you want more people playing. And where's the player base? At the lower levels. So with that logic, I don't mind the change. But that has nothing to do with high level play, I don't think. Disruptor Purification Nova radius increased from 1.375 to 1.5. Purification Nova damage decreased from 145 plus 55 versus shields to 100. You know, I actually don't mind that, because it sounds to me like they're moving away from this idea that the Disruptor is supposed to be like a Reaver and more of like a support unit. So imagine, so they increase the radius, which means you're going to hit more, and then you have, let's say you have like a couple of Colossus in your composition. This can empower the Colossus, right? It should be acting more like a support unit rather than just a straight up, you know, one shot, one kill kind of a unit. I like that. I think that's interesting. And then the logic from the developers: Disruptors might be very difficult to play against on the lower levels, but on the highest level, their efficiency dropped down significantly after the previous changes. This set of changes is aimed to bring back some of the Disruptive's old power. Wait, did I read this wrong? Purification over radius increase. Okay, so it makes the bubble bigger. Purification Nova damage decrease. So I'm not really sure why they're saying that this is supposed to make it stronger. Because it has a higher radius? Or like the bubble is bigger? Making avoiding any damage more challenging for the okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Avoiding damage. It is pretty easy to avoid damage right now. While at the same time making single disruptor hits less punishing in the worst case scenario. Yeah, that's one thing that StarCraft 2 I feel has always suffered from, especially from like the lower levels of play, is that the game is so it's so unforgiving for like a new player. You stop watching your army for like 2 seconds and then the game is over. I mean, that shit happens to me all the time. You don't watch it for a couple seconds, you're not paying attention, and the game just ends because you're macroing, right? So I do like it in the fact that it's going to be less punishing. I like that. I think that'll make battles more interesting. And overall, like from a viewing perspective, more interesting, and from a playing perspective, more interesting. The set of changes is aimed to bring back blah 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 blah. While the new damage output disruptor will no longer one-shot units like Marauders, Roaches, and Ravagers, while being more efficient against units like Marines, Ghosts, Baneling. Yeah. That's pretty. That's not bad. Not bad. I don't mind that change. I think that's logical. Mothership. Mineral, gas, and supply cost increased from 306 to 408. Shield and HP increased from 250 to 350 350. Maximum damage increased from 6 damage times 6 beams to 6 damage times 4 beams times 4 maximum number of targets. Oh, that's pretty cool. So it'll attack 4 targets. That looks pretty sweet. While we are happy with the previous set of changes, which brought Mothership Core back to Protoss versus Terran late game and improved its efficiency in other matchups, we also appreciate the community feedback about this unit losing an important part of its identity. This set of changes brings back full Mothership power and its widely known 400-400 cost, yeah, while also adding a unique ability to target up to 4 units at the same time. The single target DPS of the Mothership is now reduced, but the overall damage output will be much higher. I mean, sounds interesting, but I still think they're kind of missing the mark on that. So anyway, those are all the Protoss changes. I gotta say, that sounds really good. And it sounds like, because in patches gone by, I mean, basically every patch ever since this balance team was created, it's been complete nonsense. Like, utter nonsense. And reading that first section with Protoss is very exciting, because it sounds to me like you've got some people in there who are not wiping their buttholes before they shit. Because a lot of these changes that they're making are shit that I've been talking about for a long time and nobody listens. Maybe they're starting to listen. Alright, Terran changes. Bunker, missile turret, sensor tower. Salvage ability added for missile turret and sensor tower. Returning 75% of the cost. That's interesting. No, not right now. I'm reading the patch notes afterwards. Salvage process is now being cancelled upon taking damage. Does that apply for bunkers? Yeah, it does apply for bunkers. Whoa. I don't know about that. When you're salvaging a bunker, if it takes damage, it's going to cancel the process? I mean, I don't know. Let me think about that for a second. I actually think that's kind of cool. Yeah, well, I mean, it does. Yeah, I do think. I mean, it makes sense from a real life perspective, but I'm not sure. I mean, I think probably the logic behind it is probably, they're introducing salvage for turret because you've been in scenarios where it's like, well, I don't really need this turret, but I'll put it here, and now you don't really have to think about that. If you want to salvage it, you can. So that's they probably wanted to have some sort of ramification involved with that, because I mean, if they didn't add that, that would be just a huge, gigantic buff for Terran, right? It needs to have a downside, I think, but I'm not really sure if I like that. I feel like what they should do is they should keep the bunker the same, but apply that logic to the turrets and the sensor towers. Because I just feel like, I don't know, well, you know what? There is one open that I ran into all the time in PvT where the Terran player basically, they can just do this for free, basically. Where if the bunker gets up, and again, this is based on RNG, because when you build a bunker, like say it's a PvT, right, and you get your mineral line gets bunkered, they can essentially deny your mining for free. But the thing is, and the thing that I don't like about it is that it's RNG. And the reason I say that is because the building worker, when you stop it and then you start to rebuild it, you rebuild the bunker again, that where it goes is complete RNG. So sometimes you'll kill the SCV and the bunker won't get up, and sometimes you won't kill the SCV and the bunker will get up. So having that as a concept, where when the bunker goes up and they can't just salvage it for free, I actually like that. I think that's good, actually. Now that I think about it a little more, I like the change. This change will allow Terrans to be more efficient while moving from one defensive point to another, while at the same time increasing their overall investment and early game attack featuring bunkers, as the salvage is now much easier to counter. Yeah. So I like that. I think that's a great change. Holy fuck, dude. Why am I saying... Dude, I have never read patch notes where it has been basically all positive. Planetary Fortress, armor decreased from 3 to 2. The sensor tower, mineral and gas costs decreased from 125, 100 to 150. I don't think that's a good idea. Radar range decreased from 27 to 22. Ugh, God, they're nerfing the range again. I don't like that. Well, I mean, I guess to compensate, they're reducing the cost, but I really don't like that. No, I don't agree. I mean, and I'm just thinking about this from the perspective of what I play. I mean, you gotta understand, dude, StarCraft 2 is turning into a hack fiesta where, I mean, you are playing crazy amounts of hackers, and the sensor tower is really good for me. So I don't like that change from that perspective. Obviously, if I wasn't playing so many cheaters every day, that would be different. And I would say, yeah, that's a pretty good change, but I really don't like that change because of that. But from a gameplay perspective, I do like it. So it's kind of like it's sort of like a bittersweet kind of a situation. Yeah, but I mean, honestly, dude, developers have to start looking at the game from that perspective on some level, in my opinion. Because if you want to have, I mean, it's very obvious that they want to have sustainability in the game with these changes. Bro, let me tell you, These people give a shit about the game surviving. And honestly, I really think that on some level, you're gonna have to start doing that. Because whether you want to believe cheating is bad or not, it doesn't matter what you think. It is bad. And these types of things, I don't really like because of that. Otherwise, I would. I think it's a great change. Anyway, the logic behind the sensor tower and the armor decrease from the planetary fortress is the combination of planetary fortresses and sensor tower is a very powerful camping tool in various late game scenarios. This set of changes makes planetary fortresses slightly weaker against basic army like Zerglings, Marines, and Zealots, and making sensor towers much less efficient and covering the whole map. However, sensor towers might be useful in the early stages of the game, considering their majority reduced costs and added salvage. Yeah, the only thing I don't really like about that is I feel like having the sensor tower at that value is going to do away with like a Blink Stalker play, which is what I really like to play. So I feel like but I don't know, in practice it might be different. It just on the surface it sounds to me like that would just kind of invalidate any sort of blink play, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I like the direction that they're headed with that, though. I think it makes sense. I think it's good. I think these are good changes. The orbital command, extra supply call down, now also increases the HP of supply depot to 500, immediately repairing it. That's weird. I mean, I like that logic. You know, like for example, if you're in a scenario where you're getting like Ling Bang Doll and you weren't like readily prepared for it, I can't see a universe where that is OP. It just gives a bad player, you know, a little more time to, and it also justifies using a call down in your wall. It's an interesting change. I don't know, but what it also does is when you drop the supply when you drop the call down on the depot, if it's in the red, it repairs it instantly to 500. But it also gives it 200 more hit points. I think that's a very interesting change. It says extra supplies are rarely utilized at higher levels of play and mostly considered to be an emergency tool in case of supply caps. This change brings additional value to this ability, but the thing is that exactly what they say, to become a niche defensive tool against various offenses and counterattacks. So that's the key here, right? And this is why I think this change is good, is because it's not something that you would always use, right? It's something that would be situational and fill a niche. Okay, I like that. I think that's cool. It's taking that ability and just making it interesting, but at the same time not really breaking the game. I can't see a universe where a Ling Bane all-in still wouldn't work. That's very cool. That's very interesting. Hellion, Blue Flame Hellion upgrade bonus. Let's see, Blue Flame upgrade bonus damage versus light increase from +5 to +9. The Blue Flame upgrade is rarely utilized as a harassment tool. This changes at, oh my fucking god, dude. Well, I mean, for team games, yeah, that's... Yeah. That's massive. Anyway, it says, as the Blue Flame upgrade is rarely utilized as a harassment tool, this change is added to allow Hellions with Blue Flame to two-shot workers of all races. This might also help underused mech playstyles in all matchups, and promote generally more active early and mid-game from Terran players. I'm just trying to think if there's any, like, significant downsides to this. I'm having a hard time finding it. I don't really think that it's that bad. Because it's the Blue Flame upgrade. It's not the base. So... the only problem I have with this is that in 2v2, Blue Flame Hellion with Phoenix Feed is probably going to be a lot more common, because that is quite a significant upgrade to the Blue Flame. And I don't even know with that type of damage output. I mean, you saw what happened yesterday, or the day before, or whenever it was, when I went all those Hellions against those Roaches. I can't think off the top of my head how that interaction would go with Queens. But I think with that change, at least in 2v2 at a high level, you're going to see way different... like, you're going to see way more douchebags going Phoenix Feed with Hellions. First, I think justifying it as a harass buff is kind of silly. Terran literally has the best harassment in the game. Well, I mean, look, dude, we haven't gone through all the units, so there could be a reason that they're doing this. Maybe they've nerfed dropships or something. I don't know. Yeah, it says Blue Flame upgrade bonus damage versus light increase from +5 to +9. No, I mean, guys, what we are witnessing here is we are witnessing a transition from Legacy of the Void, and they're backtracking to HOTS and WoL logic is essentially what we're looking at here, if you haven't been able to figure that out. And that is really good. That is really good, and it will bring players back to the game. I mean, I'm on the fence about the Blue Flame. I'm not sure, but everything else has been super positive. Everything else. I have absolutely no complaints. I think they're all headed in the right direction. Okay, moving on. Liberator. Advanced ballistics effect change, providing +2 range in defender mode to increasing the radius in defender mode. Okay, so instead of range, it's getting a radius increase, the circle increase. How's that gonna work? If they're not going to change the damage output, how is that going to work? How would you defend a Liberator? They're going to increase defender mode radius by 56%? My god, dude. How would you defend that? Like, if a Terran player opens 1-1-1 with a fast lib, how... I mean, how... I don't even know how you would defend that. Smart Servos upgrade is now affecting Liberators. With Smart Servos, that's the one that... Smart Servos is the upgrade that when you transform like a Hellion to a Hellbat, that time that it takes in between, that's what Smart Servos does. So it says, with Smart Servos, Liberator siege time is decreased from 2.89 to 2.12. 26.6 reduction, and unsiege time is decreased. Yeah, dude, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. That says, despite the previous advanced ballistics nerf, Liberator's maximum attacks range is still an important limitation for the map-making process. Yeah, I can imagine. As well as a frustrating mechanic to play against. This set of changes is aimed to test a different approach for the unit, which further decreases its maximum range, in line with the Tempest changes, but allows it to cover more area on the sides and underneath the Liberator and Defender mode. I don't know, dude. I feel like that. I feel like they kind of missed it here, because it sounds to me like they're increasing the radius. Oh, but it's losing its range. Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about, because they're talking about that's the this is when they get the upgrade, the range upgrade. I'm talking about prior to that. If they're going to nerf the range, that's fine, but if they're not going to nerf the base range and increase its radius by 56%, I do not see that having a good outcome on the game. That is a change that I don't like, and I don't think it's going to stick. Thor, explosive payload splash mode damage is increased from 6... Yeah, because the Thor really needs an upgrade. Hello? Are they serious? What? Explosive payload splash radius increased. Thor's explosive payload mode may be... Oh, wait. Is this the single target? No, this is the... While being default for the unit, it's rarely utilized outside of TVZ against Mutalisk and is overall much weaker than its high-impact counterpart. This experiment... Okay, thank God it's experimental, because... No, I don't see that being a good change. The Thor is already really good. It doesn't need a buff. I mean, I understand the logic, and, you know, now that I think about it, it does sort of go in line with trying to make the game easier on newbies. Like, you're not going to see mass Void Rays at a high level of play. So if, like, you know, you're in a Bronze League game and you quit the game because you just keep losing to mass Void Rays, well, now you can build a Thor. I mean, I guess that falls in line, but that change at a high level seems kind of dumb to me. They are decreasing the range, the attack range of that, though, which is the Thor splash damage, the AA splash damage. So the units can still get in range. I don't know. Maybe that's okay. Yeah, maybe that's okay. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, so that ends the Terran segment, and I gotta say, like, I think pretty much all the Protoss changes were fantastic, and I think that there are some goofy changes from Terran, but I do think they're okay. Now, on to the Zerg changes. I had better see some nerfs in this motherfucker. The Queen. The mineral cost increased from 150 to 175. I don't know about that, man. Like, that's a gigantic nerf, but I think that might be a little too much of a nerf. I mean, especially for 2v2. And again, I'm looking at this from the 2v2 perspective. Queens are fucking useless. Not useless, but they're pretty useless in 2v2. And that change is really gonna fuck up. I mean, Zerg is pretty much always pretty much useless in team games anyway. So that change is gonna make him even more useless. But from the 1v1 perspective, it makes sense because, yeah, I mean, that's all you gotta build in 1v1. It's just queens, right? So I get it. But that is the type of change that a 2v2 player just kind of has to deal with, you know what I mean? But, that being said, that type of a change will definitely give team games its identity back. Anyway, hatchery, mineral cross, okay, so they're, oh, okay, I see. That works in retrospect with that. So they're nerfing, because the thing that I was thinking to myself is that the time that the queens come out is a problem, right? But what they've done is they've increased the cost of the queen by 25 mineral, but they've nerfed the cost of the hatchery by 25 mineral. So the time of the queen should be the same, but making it so that queens can't just be that crazy spammable in the early game. Okay, makes sense. Don't mind it. I think it makes smart, makes sense. Spinecrawler, build time decreased from 36 to 32. Okay, so you can get that out faster. Damage increased from 25 plus 5 versus armored to 30. Spore Crawler, damage increased from 15 to 20, HP decreased from 400 to 300. Let's see what they have to say about that. Zerg playstyles against Terran and Protoss players on higher levels are mainly focused around defensive gameplay featuring mass queens. Yeah, no shit. How long have we seen that for? The efficiency of such defensive playstyle with strong execution means that Terran and Protoss players might also prefer to stay passive, which doesn't lead to active early gameplay. This set of changes, while not majorly influencing Zerg openings, yeah, like I said, with a limited number of queens, is aimed to make mass queens playstyle less affordable. Spinecrawler and Spore Crawler changes will help compensate for potentially smaller defensive impact from queens. At the same time, Spore Crawler's HP was still decreased to make sure Spore Crawler damage increase is not utilized for more efficient late game camping. Okay, perfect logic. Dude, I don't know who did that. They must have changed the balance team. Is that what happened? There's no fucking way that you could convince me that these are the same people working on the balance team. There's no way. You could never convince me of that. There must be different people on there. I mean, this is all fucking fantastic. So far, pretty much all of it is just fucking fantastic. It's like they get it. It's like they finally get it. The Hydralisk. Move speed on creep with muscular augments upgrade decreased from 5.11 to 4.8. Okay, so they're nerfing the Hydra. New ability Dash. Dash is researched at the Hydra Den. Requires Hive. The upgrade costs 100 minerals, 100 gas, and takes 64 seconds. Dash is an upgrade. It's an active upgrade. Oh, that's really cool. Dash, you cast the ability and it dashes forward. Is an active non-targeted ability. Upon its use, Hydras receives 60% more movement speed for point. That's really fucking cool. The idea of this ability is to add more micromanagement potential for key Zerg unit against mass area of effect damage spells like Psionic Storm. Yeah! Being able to micro out of a Psi Storm, that's fucking sweet. and Purification Novas. Combined with other changes like Microbial Shroud, this ability might unlock alternative ground-based Zerg playstyle. Dude, whoever is on this balance team is smart. They're fucking smart and they know what they're doing. This ability might unlock alternative ground-based Zerg playstyle, blah 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 blah, compensate blah blah blah, move speed, increase most. Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't mind that. It doesn't, I can't see, because it's a Hive Tech upgrade, so I can't see a universe where that would break the game in the early game and the mid game. But you could absolutely justify having an ability like this in a late game scenario. That's really cool. The Infestor. Microbial Shroud is now sticking to units, providing them with its effect for 3.6 seconds while off the Shroud. Dude! Dude! That is fucking sweet! Okay, so basically what that means is, if you ever cast a micro... Say it's Hydra versus Air, right? And you find yourself in a winning position under the Shroud. And you want to push that advantage. Now, you're able to exit the Shroud, and the effects of the Shroud will remain on your units for 3.6 seconds, so you can chase down the air and kill them more efficiently. That's fucking sweet. I like that change, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Says, despite being very strong on paper, Microbial Shroud is not widely used in Zerg versus Protoss late game, mostly due to units under Shroud being vulnerable to area of effect damage spells. While Shroud sticking to units for 3.6 seconds outside of the actual Shroud area, Zerg players are now able to micro more freely while still enjoying the benefit of this Infestor ability. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that's going to affect the game too much. It's definitely a buff. It's a big buff, but I think it's a buff in a way that is positive. The Ultralisk. While moving, Ultralisk is now able to push allied units. So basically, if you have like roaches in the front and your ultras are in the back, the ultras, like you can use the roaches to tank, and then your ultras can walk over your army. I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's perfectly fine, and the reason is because it follows the narrative of the idea that the Ultralisk is massive. If you ever watch like any of the videos, like the StarCraft cinematics, they're fucking gigantic, so why wouldn't they be able to walk over their shit, right? It's no different than a Colossus. They can do the same thing. So I think from like a lore perspective and from just like what the unit it should be able to do, I think that makes sense. I think that's better design, right? It lines up more with that unit's identity. Their logic is, we feel that the previous Ultralisk size, attack, and cost changes were all helpful to improve the state of the unit, which, by the way, you're wrong, developer. You're absolutely wrong. The fucking Ultralisk is completely useless until you have +5 armor. If you don't have +5 armor, there is no reason to ever build an Ultra. So, you're wrong. And this is the first time you've been wrong. Anyway, we feel that the previous Ultralisk size, attack, and cost changes were all helpful to improve the state of the unit, but this additional change should help Zerg players across all levels to better utilize Ultralisk strength, avoiding cases where Ultralisks were stuck behind other allied units. So again, I don't mind the change. I think it really does give the unit its identity. And because it's still paper until you have +5, I really don't see anything wrong with that. I like it. I think it's fine. But some people may not agree with that. But they are wrong. The logic is wrong. Ultralists are bad. And they're just useless until you have +5. Okay, moving on. Broodlord. Broodlord HP is increased from 20 to 30. So when the Broodlord fires those little broodlings and they land on the ground, instead of having 20 HP, they're now going to have 30. The Broodling weapon cooldown decreased from 0.57 to 4.6, so they're going to attack at a slower rate. Fix the bug which prevented Broodlord from dealing full damage while shooting from maximum distance. The Broodlord seemed to lose too much power in head-to-head fights after the previous set of changes. The Broodling changes are now reverted, which, combined with the bug, should fix. Combined with the bug fix, should help the unit to perform better in various... I mean, I don't know. I have no idea how to think about that change. Giving more HP to free units sounds bad. Just sounds bad, but I don't know. And that's it. Says General, Orbital Command Scanner Sweeper Visual now uses Team Color. Oh. It's like if you're playing a 2v2, when somebody scans you, say, you know, like for me, right? If I'm playing, if I'm looking at the bottom left, if I'm looking at the minimap and, you know, both players are bottom left and they're both Terran, I can check the colors and then go back to red green. And if I know teal, if teal is on the top side of the base and he scans, I'll be able to see his teal scanner, so I'll know who scanned. So that's significant, and the reason that's significant is because let's say you go for like a Dark Shrine and you go for a Prism with DTs, and let's say your Prism is crossing the map and then your base gets scanned. Well, it's important to know which Terran player scanned, because you're going to be more effective with your Dark Templars knowing who scanned, right? That's perfectly valid, perfectly logical. Sensor Tower Radar Minimap Visual now uses Team Color. Again, good. Command Center Nexus and Hatchery now auto rally to mineral fields. Yeah. I mean, that dude... Like, from a lower player's perspective, I understand it, and it does fit the narrative with what they're trying to do. But here's my problem with that. My problem with that is that when you are in a late game, and you're taking 5th and 6th and 7th bases, it's very, very time-consuming to set your rally points and get all your expansions set up. And I feel like if they do that, it's... I don't know. I'm sort of on the fence about that because I feel like it's going to take away skill from players. But at the same time, it could make the game more interesting in late game scenarios like that because it's easier to macro. But I do feel like that's very significant because it's going to make it a lot easier to take additional bases like that. And, you know, the other thing also, the other thing I don't really like about that is because there are times in games, and this is just sort of like what makes the game interesting sometimes, in my opinion, where you'll make a mistake, right? And you'll set a rally point, you'll make a mistake, and you'll miss rally, and your workers will be idle. It just creates you know, you make a mistake and then you get punished for it. With that change, that's not going to happen. So I don't really like that per se, but I mean, I understand it in the fact that they're trying to make the game more accessible to newer players. Workers waiting for refinery, extractor, and a simulator to finish do not count as idle. Yeah, I like that. I don't know why that's like that. It makes no sense, but I like that. That's a good change. SCV random delay between moving while building adjusted from 3.57 to 7.14 to 4.64 to 6.07. I'm not really sure what that means. Oh, so the SCV, when it's building, it moves in different places, right? And this is RNG. Like, you can't control where it goes. But what they've done is over the same period of time, it's the same average, but the SCV should move a little more frequently, I think, if I'm understanding that correctly. Yeah, so when the SCV is building, it should be moving more frequently. Not sure how that'll impact anything, but because it says same averages, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. Well, it is, but again, if I understand it correctly, it just means that the building SCV is going to bounce more frequently. Well, because, and I guess I understand it, because I'm not sure if this is targeted for the micro or if this is targeted for new players who can't control their SCVs. Because, like, if a Protoss player scouts a Terran, right, he can harass the SCV. A lot of players, especially new ones, are going to have a hard time managing that. A lot of them aren't going to know how. And so, instead of just automatically losing that SCV, by changing that, it'll bounce around more often and maybe give the player a little more time to fix it or try to understand how to deal with that situation, right? So perhaps that's the logic. I'm not sure. But I don't know how the fuck that's going to impact me in my games. It's going to be way different. But I mean, you're going to see that SCV bounce around a lot more, I think. Added icon to command card for Infestor, Hellion, Hellbat, Liberator, showing unupgraded passives upgrade. Okay, quality of life. Siege Tank and Immortal tracking change from previous patch reverted due to causing unintentional retargeting. I have no idea what that means. Tracking? Siege Tank and Immortal tracking change? I don't know what that is. I guess like when they're focusing. That now that I think about it, one of the things, and I never really put my thumb on it, but there is one thing I've been noticing over since the last patch, is that when tanks are not sieged, they appear to be less effective. And I guess maybe that's why. I could never figure out why, but I guess that's why. Because it says Siege Tank and Immortal tracking change from previous patch reverted due to causing unintentional retargeting. And I think what that means is, say you have an unsieged tank and it's engaging a stalker. When it locks onto a target, it's supposed to stay on that target unless you change it, or unless you kite back and A-move forward again, and then it retargets. But if it's just moving, if you've just A-moved, it sticks to a target and it doesn't change. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if units get closer or further away. It makes no difference, right? So I guess maybe that's what I've been experiencing. which I could never really put my finger on, but, and it wasn't really significant to the point where I thought much about it, but now that they mention this, I guess that's why. No, it just says... No, it says for Siege Tank and Immortal. It doesn't say anything about the mine. That's why I'm very specifically talking about Siege Tank interactions that are unsieged. It says, fix an issue where Blinding Cloud could cause certain melee units to be more easily cancelled. What? Fixed an issue where Blinding Cloud caused certain melee unit attacks to be more easily cancelled. What? I don't understand that. Fix an issue with issuing orders on certain types of rocks and fog. Oh, thank God. Finally! Jesus fucking Christ, I can't believe I just read that. Thank you! Fix an issue with Changeling Zealot move animation speed. Okay. Tweaked Hydralisk move animation speed to match its actual movement speed, art only. Okay. Alright, listen, so final thoughts here. My hat's off to you, Balance Team. My hat's off to you. If you are the same people that have been working on this game for however long, which I seriously doubt because these changes are fantastic. My guess is that we've got different people in there, and I gotta say, man, like, the shit that I've been talking about for a long period of time, I would say anywhere between 60 and 70% of the shit that I've been talking about is in here. So, I don't know if they're listening to me. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But the point is that their minds are in the right place. And these changes, it's been a long fucking time. You know, if you've been watching my channel for however long, pretty much every balance patch since Legacy of the Void, all I've ever done is shit on it. That's all I've ever done, is shit on every balance patch. This is fantastic. Good job. My hat's off to you. Carry the fuck on. Fucking fantastic. I think things are gonna be way better, yeah. Like, it's super exciting. It's like really exciting. They are going away from this trash Legacy of the Void logic, and they are going back to Wolin Hot's logic, which is what needs to happen for this game to survive. Overwhelmingly positive. Overwhelmingly positive. Fucking fantastic. I have no complaints. And while I might not agree with everything 100%, I still understand the logic, and I understand why they're doing it. It's fucking fantastic. The whole thing is just amazing. Awesome. Good job. Good fucking job. You did well.